We're gonna go over top 10 tips to maintain your diesel this winter. Hey, I'm Maverick with KC Turbos. We're out here with Marcus.
How's it going?
Out here in Bend, Oregon, -1 degrees, a little chilly, a little bit. So you're driving, is this your daily?
This is my daily. So it is a 1999 Ford F350 with a 7.3 diesel, ZF6 manual transmission.
Got the sleds on the back.
Oh yeah, I race sleds, so I always have sleds on the back. You won't ever see me without one.
Okay, so before you head into winter, what are some things you can do to prep your truck?
You always want to have studded tires or snow tires or something that's got some grip to it. It's always important to have a snowflake tire because as it gets colder, rubber gets harder.
Yeah, true. Winter tires are made with rubber that maintains flexibility in low temps. All-season tires are designed to handle heat generated on the road. They're not designed for freezing temps, and they stiffen when it gets cold. When a tire stiffens, it can't provide the traction you need.
So it's always good to change your fuel filters. So mine, it's under the truck, it's in this area. And then also your bypass filter, which mine's like right here. Good to change your fuel filters, make sure it's not clogged or has substance in it. And then your bypass filter. Some vehicles have it, some don't. So your diesel runs into your filters, the bypass filter catches all that cruddy stuff and water and then separates it to run the fuel. So it's always good to change those, check them, and just make sure those are top shape. Check your oil, you know, right here. It's super easy to check right here. It's right there. Make sure your coolant's full, and as you can see, mine's right there at full. Check power steering, brake fluid. And so it's always good to have de-icer windshield fluid in there. And the de-icer thaws out the ice. It has an additive to it. If you don't have that in it, it's just gonna freeze. And the de-icer also keeps the fluid from freezing on your windshield. All right, so we got a meter gauge right here. This tells you your battery's voltage. So it's always good to, you know, before winter or during winter, check your batteries. So you can set that right there and, you know, make sure negative goes to negative and positive. Hey, you can see I'm at 12 volts, 12.66. If you don't have a tester, you can go to any auto parts store or something, like an O'Reilly's or something, and they'll check out how many volts you have.
Okay, so during the winter, what are some things you can do to make it easier on your diesel when you're starting it up?
A good thing to do if you have a garage or a shop, smart to put it in there. Even if it's not heated, it gives a little warmth so that things can thaw off. As of right now, my tailgate's frozen shut and my air compressor won't build air because it's frozen. So it's always good to have everything thawed off so that everything works properly as it frozen. Starting it up, it's a little bit different than a gasser, as you know, all of us, we can all admit, even you.
Yeah.
Starting up a gasser, we'll all start it up and we'll just go straight to driving because it's a gasser and we don't think of anything about it. But with a diesel, they're a little bit heavier, there's more fluids pushing, there's a little bit more to it to be nicer to it. So with Power Strokes, there's what's called glow plugs, and at Cummins, they got what you call a grid heater. On the front of my vehicle, I have a little plug. So here's the plug-in for it, and I plug it in every night, keeps the block nice and warm, keeps the fluids nice and warm in the block, so when you start it up, it's really nice and easy. So whenever you get home, plug it in. That warms up the block and everything.
So do you only need to cycle them once?
All right, so starting your vehicle in the morning, it could be really cold out, so there's a way to start it right here. It's right there. So you always want to make sure that goes away, and that means you're good to start. And then in some cases, you'll cycle it once and then it goes away, and then you'll go to cycle it again. That just gives it more time to warm up, and that's always good. My truck's already warmed, so I can just do this. It's always good to watch the temperatures, because when it's like 10 degrees, 20 degrees, and that's good to cycle it a couple times. Don't just get into your vehicle and just start cranking, because that'll crank, drain your batteries, ruin your starter, and just make it really rough. And that's those videos you see of people and it'll just crank, and a lot of smoke, really cool noises, and it's all fun and all, but it's really hard on it.
Not good for the long term.
No, not good for the long term.
So after it's warmed up, what's going on? What do you do?
So once you get it warmed up and you get it started, you definitely want to let it warm in. You don't want to just hop in and start driving it. Once you get it started, definitely let it warm up for a little bit. If you do have to go and drive and get it started, and you have to go to your job or wherever and you have to drive somewhere really quickly, drive it super easy and nice to it.
There's summer diesel and winter diesel, is that right?
Yes, there is. So all the gas stations, as it gets closer to winter, and I know some people down in like Arizona and Texas, they don't have to deal with it. There is such thing as a winter and summer diesel. Once it gets closer to winter for out here in the snow, there's an additive added to the diesel so it doesn't gel up.
The two grades of diesel fuel are grade number 1 and grade number 2 diesel. Summer diesel is known as grade number 2. It starts clouding or gelling around 19 degrees Fahrenheit compared to straight up grade number 1 diesel, which does the same around negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. The main component of straight up number 1 diesel is kerosene, and it also doesn't contain paraffin, which crystallizes at low temps. Winter diesel is a mixture of grade number 1 and grade number 2. The fuel ratio can vary depending on the location. Generally it's about 20 to 80, but for the coldest regions pure grade number 1 diesel may be required. It might be tempting to run winter diesel the entire year because of its low gelling point, but it's more expensive and has a lower energy content, so you're going to get worse MPG. If you're still worried about your fuel gelling, you can always buy additives to lower the gelling point for winter.
Winter weather, you're going to want to keep your tank filled up as often as you can because you don't want to get condensation, especially to keep your truck in a shop or something like that. Is that right?
Yeah, so if your tank's low, I mean, it's not going to hurt anything unless you let it stay at a low level for a while, because you can get some buildup of condensation in there and it'll create some water in there. And water's a no-go because as it gets colder, that water could go in there and freeze up in your fuel line and then cause it to freeze, and then that fuel won't get to go where it needs to, and that could cause a huge problem within the motor.
Yeah, and water expands when it freezes too.
Exactly. It's also good in case you get stranded somewhere.
Yeah.
And if you need to sleep in your vehicle, it's good to have a full tank because then you can just leave your vehicle idling all night. A good rule of thumb is when you're driving in snow, make sure your four-wheel drive works. And some of you guys, luckily enough, have an electronic four-wheel drive. I have the older manual. Starting out on snow, it's always good, especially with a manual, if you want to, put it in gear and super lightly let it grab so that it has something to grab onto. Don't just dump the clutch, or though it's an automatic, just instantly hit the throttle, because then you'll just dig yourself a hole and you will sink. You don't need to be on it the whole time. Just be nice and simple and it'll drive. The more throttle you give, the more it's going to want to spin and sink down. So it's always good just be nice on the throttle, because if I start to do that, it's just spinning me. So if I just drive nice and easy, it's nice traction going. Make sure you just keep light throttle, don't spin out, because if you get sideways, not a good deal.
Go easy on the brake. As soon as you hit it hard, you're going to lock up, you're going to skid.
With manual rigs, braking is pretty nice. If I'm going to slow down, I'm going to RPM match the gears, because when you let out of the clutch in a downshift, it's going to want to grab the truck like this, and that'll cause the truck to spin the tires. So it's always good just to match the RPMs, and it'll be for a smooth transition. And braking, just super nice, feather the brakes, and it'll be good. So it's always good to just have smooth turning, that way you don't spin. With lane changes, sometimes people don't want to touch the left lane just because there's fresh snow, they want to follow tracks, which is smart. Just stay in the lane even though the other person's going slow. So with corrective steering, if you start to get sideways, with rear wheel drive, turn the opposite way to straighten yourself out. Turn left to go right, turn right to go left, as Doc Hudson cars would say. It's always good to go out into just a back road and practice that, because it's a good trick to have. So like I said, with corrective steering, it's easy to get sideways in a roundabout, but it's always good just to know your counter steers, and you're good. In a roundabout or just any turn in general, it's always important to use your turn signal, especially when it's slick out, because if you don't let the other car behind you know what's going on, and you go to immediately turn, it could cause for a really bad accident. So like, I'll let the car behind me know I'm turning right on this exit so that they don't just start speeding up and hit me. But if you're like going into an intersection or turning off on a neighborhood road, always use your turn signal, because you don't want that car to lock up their brakes and go right in the back of you. So with these snow banks, this one's kind of low, but it'll still drag. And for people that don't know how to drive in snow, you never want to get your tires caught up on a snowbank, so you don't want to be caught texting and driving. Always stay in the lane, because if your tires catch that bank, it will grab you. No matter what you do, it'll grab you. and it can cause a big accident. You can go into a tree or in a ditch or a cliff. So it's always good to stay in the middle of the road. If you do happen to get caught in a bank or one of these berms with all this powder out here, it's good to ease off the throttle so that it can catch itself, because if you don't, it's just going to keep going. So momentum, it is your greatest friend or it is your worst enemy. So it's always good, like if you're going up on a hill, always make sure you got momentum going up to a hill, because if you don't have momentum, you are just going to spin and not go anywhere. So momentum is your friend in those cases. When you're going downhill on slick thing, momentum is not your friend. You want to be going as slow as possible on slick downhills, especially going over winter passes over a mountain. Always be good to have chains or something that'll grab when you're going downhill. Everyone thinks everyone's gonna drive just fine and everything's gonna be great. Things can happen real fast, so don't think it's not gonna happen to you, because it can happen to you. Being here in Bend, Oregon, we see a ton of crashes, people off in the ditches. Not every driver is gonna be a safe driver. There's a lot of accidents because people will be texting and driving. They will be eating something and just not paying attention. You always want to know what's your exit route. Where are you gonna go if someone comes into your lane and spins out? Because the last thing you wanna have is a head-on accident. Always be attentive in front of you, because if someone slams on the brake, you need to be able to be on your brakes, but know how to stop without skidding. So it's always gonna be a defensive driver, because it'll save everyone's life, save your life. Recovery stuff. So it's always good to have a strap on you or a rope. Definitely don't recommend using a bungee cord or a ratchet strap, because I've seen things where the person getting towed, the strap could snap and come back through the windshield, or the person towing someone out, it can go through the back window. What I like to use is a kinetic rope. It's a really, really thick rope, or a thin one, but I use the thick ones because when you pull, it expands and does not break. So it's always smart to have those, because with straps and stuff, you got to be easy to get it tight, but a kinetic rope, you can just whack on it and it'll hold that tension. Definitely smart though. Recovering people, always gonna have maybe something to go under your tire for traction, and also make sure it is an area where your vehicle can make it, because it is not a good idea to go somewhere to get someone unstuck and then you get stuck. So it's always smart to just know your area, make sure you have all the right equipment. It's also good when you're recovering, service trucks have all the lights. It's always good to be a spaceship.
Act like you know how this goes.
Always adds for a good time. I know I didn't cover everything, but definitely hope it helped, so that, going into winter, or if you're already in winter, it just gives you a better idea and gives you a little bit more help on getting your vehicle going.
Yeah, and if you guys have any of your own tips or tricks, drop them in the comments. We want to see them.